Vietnam.
This is the Voice of Vietnam, broadcasting from Hanoi, capital of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam.
Hello and welcome to the Voice of Vietnam. I'm Lệ Chiu. In today's program, after the news, we will bring you a review of major world events last week. Current affairs comments on Vietnam Human Rights Act 2013, which runs counter to trend of Vietnam-US relations. In our colorful Vietnam, Vietnam's 54 ethnic groups edition will introduce you to crossbows among the cultural ethnic groups. Finally, personality of the week profiles Thảo Giang, an artist deeply in love with some singing. But first, here's the news. In the headlines, Vietnam and New Zealand pledge mutual support for each other in joining the UN Security Council. Vietnam and China forge closer ties, and Iran's new president nominates cabinet lineup. Now for the news in detail. Governor General Jerry Montepare and his wife are paying a state-level visit to Vietnam from August 3rd to the 8th at the invitation of State President Trương Tấn Sang. Talks were held between the two leaders after the official welcoming ceremony on Monday in Hanoi. President Sang expressed his belief that Montepare's visit would contribute to boosting the comprehensive partnership between the two countries. Both leaders said that they were satisfied with the flourishing ties of the past 4 years, particularly when Vietnam and New Zealand upgraded their relationship to a strategic partnership in 2009. They expressed pleasure over their close cooperation in regional and world forums, such as ASEAN, EAS, ARF, APEC, ASEAN, and UN, and the negotiations of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Both leaders reiterated the importance of peace, stability, safety, security, and free navigation, stressing the need for respect for international law, including the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and the intention to reach a code of conduct of parties in the East Sea. After the talks, both leaders witnessed the signing of the Vietnam-New Zealand Plan of Action for the 2013-2016 period and the agreement on double taxation avoidance. President Cha told the media about the outcome of the visit.
Hai bên đề cập rất nhiều vấn đề quan trọng và đề ra những định hướng lớn trong cái việc phát triển quan hệ hai nước thì các lĩnh vực.
Both sides discussed many momentous issues and mapped out major directions for developing bilateral ties in politics, security, defense, trade, investment, and at regional and global forums. Politically, both sides agreed to exchange high-level visits and contacts, as well as boost people-to-people diplomacy. Both sides agreed to increase two-way trade to $1 billion by 2015. We appreciated our mutual support for each other in joining the UN Security Council for Vietnam for the 2020-2021 term and for New Zealand for 2014-2015 term. During the occasion, Governor General Matepare invited President Sang and his wife to visit New Zealand, and the invitation was accepted. Prime Minister Nguyễn Văn Dũng said that Vietnam and China would do their utmost to boost the bilateral comprehensive cooperative strategic partnership to achieve effective and practical results. Speaking in a meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Hanoi on Monday, Mr. Zhong asked the two countries to proactively realize agreements signed by their high-ranking leaders and enhance cooperation in the areas of the economy, trade, investment, infrastructure construction, and mutual traffic. Regarding the EC issue, Prime Minister Zhong asked the two sides to resolve differences through peaceful negotiations, handle emerging issues with a constructive attitude, and not let these issues affect bilateral relations and peace and stability in the East Sea. Mr. Zhong said that the two countries should resolve marine disputes based on the agreement on principles in dealing with marine issues between Vietnam and China under international law, particularly the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, the declaration on the conduct of parties in the East Sea and towards the building of the Code of Conduct in the East Sea. Minister Wang Yi affirmed the boosting of cooperation between the two countries, focusing on the fields in which they were strong. He extended Prime Minister Li Keqiang's invitation to Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng to attend the 10th China-ASEAN Trade Fair in Nam Province in September. National Assembly Chairman Nguyễn Sinh Hùng said Vietnam was willing to be a bridge for France to develop relations with Southeast Asian nations. Speaking in a meeting with French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius in Hanoi on Monday, Mr. Hùng said Vietnam's National Assembly supports and accepts efforts to enhance cooperation with France. He asked the French Foreign Ministry to help consolidate parliamentary relations between the two countries under the agreement signed in 2004 and 2008. Minister Fabius expressed his optimism about Vietnamese-French relations, saying French foreign policy focusing on Asia, including Vietnam. He believed that the good relations between Vietnam and France would enhance their status in the region and the world. Radio The Voice of Vietnam, VOV, and the Ministry of Education and Training have signed an agreement on communication programs until 2015. Accordingly, VOV will broadcast orientations, guidelines, and measures to comprehensively and drastically reform the education sector, role models and lessons in order to improve educational quality and educational development in remote and disadvantaged areas. VOV Director General Nguyễn Đăng Tiến spoke at Monday's signing ceremony.
Đài Tiếng nói Việt Nam có 4 cái loại hình báo chí: phát thanh, báo in, báo điện tử.
Radio Voice of Vietnam runs 4 forms of media: radio, printed newspaper, online newspaper, and a TV channel. The educational sector has many programs and innovations which strengthen the foundation of national development. We are supporting the education sector in this process. The Ministry of Education and Training will promptly inform VOV of its policies and activities, so that VOV reporters will be able to quickly reflect the developments to the public. Japan's HTV-4 cargo spacecraft on Sunday launched Vietnam's microsatellite Pico Dragon to the International Space Station. The satellite was sent along with 3 NASA satellites from the Kanegashima Space Center. HTV-4 is expected to arrive at the space station on August 9th. The 10 by 10 by 11.35 centimeter cube, weighing about 1 kilogram, is the first microsatellite developed by the Vietnamese engineers and researchers of the National Satellite Center. The Pico Dragon is programmed to capture images of the Earth, collect space environment data, and test communication systems. You're listening to The Voice of Vietnam. Here's the world news. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani announced a new cabinet lineup immediately after he was sworn in as Iran's president on Sunday. According to law, the new president has 2 weeks to nominate a list of cabinet members. Rouhani's move was to realize his commitments intended to rescue Iran's exhausted economy affected by the West embargoes due to Iran's controversial nuclear program, and to commit towards constructive dialogues with the international community. Iran's parliament has 10 days to consider the nomination, but Iranian media says parliamentaries are ready to cast their ballots within 1 week or less to fix the list. Rouhani's nominated list of new cabinet members includes Mohammad Javad Zarif, a diplomatic veteran, and former oil minister Bajan Namda Jangane. The South Korean Ministry of Unification on Sunday called on North Korea to resume negotiation on reopening the joint industrial park at Kaesong, which has been shut down for the last 3 months. A spokesperson for South Korea's Ministry of Unification said if North Korea wants to resolve the Kaesong issues and considers this industrial park as a standard for inter-Korean relations, it must show goodwill instead of keeping silent. The comment came 1 week after Jo Kyung-ji, South Korea's Minister of Unification, proposed a negotiation on reopening Kaesong. North Korea has not yet responded to the proposal. Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd announced on Sunday that national elections will take place September the 7th. Rudd said that the elections will be a test of trust that shows who Australians put their trust in. He pledged that his Labour Party will restore the national budget's surplus. Australian candidates have 5 weeks for electoral campaigns. Support for the Labour Party and its opponents is even. Now to end the news headlines once again. Vietnam and New Zealand pledge mutual support for each other in joining the UN Security Council. Vietnam and China forge closer ties. And Iran's new president nominates cabinet lined up. That's the news on Radio The Voice of Vietnam. You are listening to The Voice of Vietnam. We now review major developments in the world last week. Violence continues to spread in many areas around the world, but the Middle East is seeing at least one positive hint of peace. After 5 years of diplomatic impasse, peace negotiations between Israel and Palestine were resumed on July 29 in Washington, D.C. The result of tireless efforts by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who made 6 trips to the Middle East in the last 5 months. The Israelis and Palestinians have agreed to build a roadmap for future talks towards a peace agreement. Although analysts say this is just the beginning of a long and rocky road, the negotiation has sowed seeds of hope among Israeli and Palestinian people and others around the world for real peace in the Middle East. Although observers say the 5th parliamentary election in Cambodia on July 28th took place in a fair, free, transparent, and non-violent atmosphere, in line with Cambodian voters' wishes, the Cambodian National Rescue Party is contesting the results. The CNRP wants to form an investigating committee and has asked the international community to intervene. Prime Minister Hun Sen says he and the Cambodian People's Party are willing to meet with the opposition to resolve any differences. He warned that according to Cambodia's election law, if the CNRP resolutely rejects the election results, the seated ones won't be delivered among other parties. He called on the people to unite and vowed not to let instability occur as it did in 1998 and 2003. Relations between Russia and the U.S. took a hit when last week Moscow granted 1-year asylum to former CIA contractor Edward Snowden. Russia has downplayed the impact of the issue on bilateral ties, but the U.S. says it has seriously damaged their relationship. President Barack Obama is considering not attending the G20 summit scheduled to take place in Russia in September and canceling a summit with Russian President Putin. Hassan Rouhani, a pro-reform cleric, officially became Iran's president on August 4th. The 64-year-old cleric won 50.7% of the vote in presidential election on June 14th. His victory has brought new hope for resolving the country's tense standoff with the U.S. Analysts say it's too early to comment on Rouhani's policies. He's facing a number of domestic challenges, particularly an economic recession and high unemployment and high inflation. The U.S. State Department has closed 21 embassies and consulates. The department says al-Qaeda terrorists are planning terrorist attacks from now until the end of the month. European countries, including the UK, Germany, and France, and Canada, have planned to close some embassies in the Middle East and North Africa. Egypt is in its worst crisis since the toppling of President Mohamed Morsi on July 3rd. The transitional road made by the army has failed and waves of violence are occurring in the country. Domestic and international diplomatic efforts have been ineffective. Minister of Defense Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on August 4th held talks with pro-Morsi representatives, hoping to resolve the conflict through peaceful means. And that's a review of major world events last week. Next on Radio Voice of Vietnam is our daily current affairs. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed the Vietnam Human Rights Act 2013, H.R. 1897, which calls on the U.S. government to set human rights and democracy conditions for non-humanitarian aid to Vietnam. The Act's approval, based on inaccurate information about human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam, runs counter to the trend of improving relations between Vietnam and the U.S. VOV comments.
The Vietnam Human Rights Act 2013 was initiated by Republican Congressman Ed Royce and Chris Smith. The act calls on the U.S. government to stop non-humanitarian aid to Vietnam until Vietnam makes serious improvements to human rights. The act also demands that Vietnam release lawbreakers, which the act calls political prisoners, and respect religious freedom. It urges the U.S. government to list Vietnam among countries of particular concern for abridging religious freedom. The Vietnam Human Rights Act 2013 contains nothing new compared to previous acts submitted to the House of Representatives annually. The head of Vietnam's Human Rights Office, Nguyễn Thanh Sơn, said the issues raised in the Vietnam Human Rights Act 2014 were discussed at the 17th Vietnam-U.S. Human Rights Dialogue in April, and Vietnam clearly stated its point of view.
Phía Mỹ nêu rằng là Việt Nam bắt giữ và xử một số công dân là các blogger.
At the dialogue, Vietnam raised a number of issues of U.S. concern regarding freedom of speech in the media and on the internet. In regard to U.S. allegations that Vietnam has arrested bloggers or internet users, Vietnam explained that these people were punished for violating the law. Nguyễn Văn Hải, Tạ Phong Thành, and others, under the cloak of freedom of speech and of the media, incited others to sabotage the Vietnamese state by distorting party guidelines and state politics.
The Vietnam Human Rights Act 2013 was criticized by some Americans even before it was submitted to the House of Representatives. Congressman Andy Paloma Vega, who is member of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee in Asia and the Pacific, said the act does not reflect the full truth of the situation in Vietnam, and its approval was urged by certain Vietnamese Americans who did not have goodwill towards Vietnam. Paloma Vega said that as Vietnam War veteran, he understands the feelings of these Vietnamese Americans, but attempting to overthrow the government and providing false information is not the right thing to do. According to the congressman, it is time to break with the past and begin a new period of healing war wounds. The act was adopted 1 week after an official visit to the U.S. by Vietnamese President Trương Tân Sang, which is thought to have improved bilateral ties. In a joint statement, President Sang and President Obama affirmed the two countries' comprehensive partnership based on respect for the UN Charter and international law, and respect for each other's political institutions, independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. The two men also discussed points of disagreement concerning human rights as well as ways to boost bilateral relations. Foreign Minister Phạm Bình Minh was a member of the Vietnamese delegation.
Trên lĩnh vực nhân quyền thì chúng ta cũng trao đổi thẳng thắn về lĩnh vực.
Vietnam has clearly stated its policies on human rights protection and promotion. Representatives of Vietnam's major religions also accompanied President Trương Tân Sang to discuss the human rights situation in Vietnam.
The issue of human rights will continue to be discussed, but it should not impede this relationship from moving forward. Vietnam and the U.S. will continue the human rights dialogue to increase mutual understanding on this issue. Colorful Vietnam.
Vietnam's 54 ethnic groups. The Catu called wooden crossbows, major crossbows, the Hu Hong hamlet in Dong Giang district of Quảng Nam province, which is home to many crossbow shooters, still preserve age-old techniques of crossbow making. VOV Lanang reports. For generations, wooden crossbows went with the Catu into the mountains and forests for hunting animals and birds. During Vietnam's wars of resistance, crossbows were used to fight the enemy. This weapon is so important to the Katu that it's always carried whenever they go out. The real wood of Bahongho village told VOV.
Cái nỏ này, thế hệ cha ông trước là họ dùng nỏ này đánh các thú vật. Cái thứ hai là chiến đấu.
Our predecessors used to hunt wild boars and fight enemies with crossbows. I was told that shooting of a crossbow does not produce any sound at a distance of 20 to 25 meters, so the enemy could not detect where the shooter was. When an arrow is coated with poison, the wound is fatal. That's why our crossbow is distinctive. Another state has banned hunting, but crossbows are still used at shooting competitions.
The Katu make arrows from the trunk of long old tree. The poison is made from the resin of a special type of white tree, which is found only in the high mountains of West Guangdong province. The way the crossbow is made is quite special, says Bria Bay.
Cái nỏ người dân tộc Bà Tôn làm lâu đời từ trước này, nhưng là từ ông.
The art of making Gertu crossbows has been passed down from generation to generation. It's a difficult process. First, we must find the right tree in the far forest. It might take us 2 or 3 days to find it. Then the wood should be dried with fire, scraped and shaped. Without the maker's skill, the crossbow won't break easily or be inaccurate. Only a few people succeed in crossbow making, but many know how to shoot it.
Today, shooters in the Wuhan village show off their skills in provincial and national contests. Brave Kid has finished first 10 times at provincial crossbow shooting competitions. Brave Boot, a famous shooter in Guangdong province, says it requires a lot of practice.
Vì thế giờ đi thao tập ở nhà nên tập rồi em kéo chơi bắn.
In the beginning, I was keen on my dad's shooting and learned the technique from him. Crossbow shooting is more difficult than gun shooting because guns have size. I began entering competitions 10 years ago.
Shooters like Bill Hood and Bill Bear practice every day at a fixed time on a deserted piece of land far from the village for safety reasons. Bill Bear tells us.
Tập bắn nỏ thường buổi chiều buổi 4-5 giờ. Cái loại nỏ nó không thể ban ngày mà trời nắng mình bắn là không được.
We practice in the afternoon from 4 to 5 when the temperature is cooler. The crossbow cannot withstand much heat and may break when being shot.
The trainers say they are now training hard for the upcoming provincial competition. The wooden crossbow used to be weapon for defending the village. The Katu tradition continues today as a sport. Up next on Voice of Vietnam is Personality of the Week. The Dong Xuân Night Market in Hanoi has become a regular weekend venue for tourists who come for the performances of Sum, also known as streetcar singing. The show is performed by an art troupe headed by Thao Giang, who has devoted his life to restoring this street art through teaching and performing.
Em ơi, em ở lại nhà vườn rau em đốn That was Thao Giang singing parts of Some Tàu Địa, which is traditionally performed on trains. At the age of 70, Thao Giang still has a clear, strong voice. He says when he was little, he used to go to school by train, and some sing became imprinted in his mind and soul. In 1958, Thao Giang entered the Vietnam National Academy of Music and stayed there to teach after graduation. He told us he was particularly drawn to folk music.
Tôi thì cái dân gian nào tôi cũng thích cả. Vì tôi cũng có thể là nó hơi tham lam một chút.
You may think I'm obsessed because I like all kinds of folk music, ritual, ceremonial, and quan họ singing. It is my passion. With some singing, I feel I have a responsibility to preserve it.
When Thao Giang saw that some sing was beginning to disappear in the 1980s, he immediately began to research and compile it in the hope of preserving and restoring a traditional cultural feature of Hanoians. This was not an easy task, as many of those familiar with the old Some melodies had already passed away.
Because of his great love for some singing, Thao Giang spent most of his salary to cover his travel fees.
Tôi cứ đi học các nghệ nhân, ngày xưa tôi đi sưu tầm nhưng mà hỏi nó mấy năm rồi nó không có cái dành cho tôi.
I had to meet the artists and learn the songs from them personally because I did not have a tape recorder. The more I've studied and analyzed the lyrics, the deeper I've become engaged in this art.
Thao Giang worked with Professor Phạm Khang to establish the Vietnam Music Development Center in 2005 with the aim of restoring and introducing some singing to the public through research, training and performing. Thao Giang is currently the center's deputy director. Thao Giang has helped train a generation of young dedicated artists. Vũ Đức Huy has been starting the Vietnam Music Development Center for 5 years.
Mình cảm phục về cái sự hy sinh và đứng hàng đầu dành cho âm nhạc dân gian, tức là ở cái tuổi.
I admire my teacher Thao Giang for his dedication to folk music. He should be relaxing now, but instead, he's doing his best to preserve Vietnamese culture. He teaches us with dedication and passion.
Thao Giang says some singing is not just an art, it's the essence of the culture of the Vietnamese, Hanoians in particular.
Làm cái gì cũng thế thôi, đó là nghiên cứu khoa học rồi là làm một cái công trình gì chúng ta.
Whatever we do, we should do with enthusiasm and devotion. When I first learned about them, I was quickly fascinated by the art.
Musician Nguyễn Quang Vinh has been working with Thao Giang for years.
Nhạc sĩ Thao Giang là một nghệ sĩ và là một nhạc sĩ có tài. Nghệ sĩ cũng là người đã có rất nhiều.
Thao Giang is a talented artist and musician. He has created many pieces of music for concerts and solo performances. Thao Giang can play not only the đàn nhị or two-string violin, but other traditional musical instruments. He is dedicated to the preservation of teaching of Vietnam's intangible cultural and musical heritage.
Thao Giang's love for some singing is boundless and he is determined to kindle a love for traditional music in the younger generation.
Có đám đưa dầu, có đám đưa dầu hai hàng, có đám đưa dầu cờ đàn anh cả, biết cầu em sang với tiếng phách, tiếng phách rụng rã.
Time is up on Radio Voice of Vietnam. Our producer is Hồng Hạnh and Cẩm Thi. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.